Mwaka here. Welcome to my channel. Today I really want to talk about human rights or human wrongs, as some might put it. And why is it there's so much big deal on human rights going on, and especially in the African continent. They are the ones heavily pushed on the subject of human rights. And you find that there are other countries that have more harsher laws than, let's say, for instance, in Uganda, which has been in the news lately because of their anti-LGBTQ law. But why is it that all these other countries that have such laws, nobody says anything about it? But hold that thought and let's watch this professor right here, Professor Lumumba, go into it, and we'll come back.
Professor Lumumba has been criticized for supporting the Ugandan parliament and a president of Uganda in relation to approval of the Anti Homosexuality Act. SABC News spoke to Lumumba on this.
Looking at other issues like your challenges facing the ordinary people, there's also some concerns in terms of how leaders are conducting themselves. I mean, an example of the president of Uganda, who has been in power for quite a long time, the recent law that was passed by that parliament. Many people saying this is a violation of the human rights.
On that one, I agree with the president. It's not about President Museveni. I personally have supported President Museveni on that bill. And this is an issue on which we'll have different opinions. The regime of rights which we are being asked to follow is a regime of rights that was imposed by the Western world in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. When the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being initiated in Paris, no African country was independent. And at that time, they say the civil and political rights were the most important. Then they said that economic and cultural rights were important. Then they say development rights. Now they say all rights are interdependent and therefore they are universal. But we must ask ourselves the fundamental question: don't we have rights that are uniquely African? And on the question of this idea of being told periodically by the Western world that these are the rights that we must deal with, it is incumbent upon us to come out very clearly. When the white man came here and imposed laws on us, whether it's the common law or the Dutch Roman law, they told us at that time that there is something called sex against the order of nature. Has nature changed? So we must be very slow to personalize laws. We must be very slow. And these arguments that they bring about bills relating to LGBTQ, they'll never say them to the Arabs. They'll never go to Kuwait. They'll never go to Bahrain. They'll never go to Brunei. They'll never go to Saudi Arabia. They'll never go to Indonesia to tell them. It is Africans who they think are tails to be wagged. So on this issue, the government of the Uganda and the people of Uganda, I am with them 100%. There is no freedom outside of the law.
How do you balance the decision or right to choose?
Choose what? The choice must be limited according to the mores of a different community. And in any event, should we be talking about LGBTQ when we have no food on the table? And the danger, including with you journalists, is that now when you interview people, you have your own position that you want to impose on us. We refuse. We know.
In the United Nations Human Rights Council.
But the United Nations Human Rights Council, is it some god? Is it not a body that is composed of human beings who have created a body where some are permanent members and some are not permanent members? Remember, in matters of morality, numbers don't matter. It is the mores. You may disagree with me, but I'm telling you without batting an eyelid and unapologetically that some of us oppose LGBTQ, and you who are anchors I'm now telling you, because I've seen it with other anchors from other parts of the world, you have a position and you want to impose on us. We refuse. Yours is to midwife, to ensure that my views, if others have a different view, you go and interview them. But from where I sit, I oppose LGBTQ with every ounce in my life.
Including that they must be killed.
Who said they must be killed?
Ugandan
No, there is nobody who has said that they must. I want you to read the law. They have not said that. Nobody has said that.
Finally, I'm looking forward to deliver the lecture. I know you don't want to get into the content of the letter, but there's also people in South Africa who are saying, because the EFF took a stand and called President Museveni not to sign this homosexuality bill into law, how can they invite you?
You know, it is tragic that we are living in a world where there is a competition of ideas. And then you are telling people, only invite people who think like you think. I find that intellectually insulting. I know many people, many friends with whom I do not share views on many things. But when we disagree in an agreeable manner. If you are inviting people, you want to associate with people who think the way you are, then that is the unanimity of the grave and the graveyard on the cemetery, and that is unfortunate. Democracy is a competition of ideas, and I don't impose your ideas on you, and you don't impose your ideas on me. Those who think like that really are people who defy.
Now, as you see there, for me, the way I look at it, it's more like, it's like flavor of the month. There's usually one attack on Africa or Africans. It comes in different disguises, you know. By the way, this here, it's not a video against any gay or anybody that identify as such. But this one, I'm just specifically going on like, why is it being pushed hard on Africans, Uganda in particular, while you have countries like Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, United Arab Emirates, and Yemen have one of the harshest laws against LGBTQ and gays and stuff like that. But the Congress and all those, everybody else won't say a peep, won't say nothing, but the push is on Africans. So my question is, why, if the human right is going to be all across the board, then those countries that are mentioned need to have the wrath too. They need to face your criticism. Otherwise, it becomes like it's a one-sided, targeted, a different flavor of the month attack against black people in general. So usually it's...
If he goes further and rapes a person, a child, an indigent means a weak person, he commits a capital offense and he faces a maximum sentence of death. This is the law I signed. These are the three substantive points anti-homosexuality law. Before I conclude and talk about the planned legislative agenda for the coming session of Parliament, I cannot avoid commenting on the noise about the anti-homosexuality law that you enacted and I signed recently. My stand on homosexuality has been repeatedly laid out to all and sundry. It starts with a few questions. Why does somebody become a homosexual? Is it on account of genetic, hormonal, or psychological reasons? Discussions with our doctors and the other African doctors who had a conference with African members of Parliament from 22 countries unequivocally led us to conclude that homosexuality is as a result of psychological disorientation at some point in one's life, not genetic and not hormonal, as some of us initially thought. This conclusion that homosexuality is a psychological disorientation gives us a way forward, logically, reasonably, without bias, without what? If somebody is a victim of psychological disorientation, do you criminalize him or her on account of that? Is it logical or fair to do so? The answer is no. Instead, such a person needs assistance to, if possible, overcome his psychological disorientation. I'm glad the MPs agreed with me and clarified this point in the law. Therefore, those who say that the homosexuals will be arrested if they go for medical care, etc., are wrong. The law now says that a homosexual will not be criminalized for merely being so if he or she keeps the being to oneself. What then does the law fight? It fights this homosexual when he or she goes from merely being and starts recruiting other people who are not psychologically disoriented like him or her to be like him by misinforming or bribing them. There, he becomes a criminal and, if convicted, goes to prison for a period not exceeding 20 years. If he goes further and rapes a person, a child, an indigent means a weak person, he commits a capital offense and he faces a maximum sentence of death. This is the law I signed. These are the three substantive points. Being is your personal problem. Merely being a homosexual, that you find you are disoriented, you don't like the ones you should like, you like the ones you shouldn't like. Being is your personal problem. Promoting is criminal and qualifies you for prison. Raping qualifies you for a possible death sentence. So you people, when you are arguing with these people, go for the substance. Don't be diverted to these other. Additionally, in Uganda, sex is confidential, even heterosexual sex. Therefore, if a homosexual keeps his being to himself or confidentially seeks assistance from the doctors,
this is, for me, like even like Museveni said in the video, people need to look at it not from a sense of if somebody chooses those kind of practices, especially in that law in Uganda, that's what they're saying. If that's you, keep it in your house and keep it to yourself. But what this is turned into now is they're targeting kids that haven't yet formed up. They're not even up to a point of being teenagers to form an opinion on themselves, but they're just forcing them. And I've seen videos of some of those people that have done that, where they allowed those blockers and went in and got mutilated. And my thing is, why all these laws are harsher than Uganda, especially the one in Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, but are they being told the same thing that these African countries are being told? You know, it's almost that is almost kind of like you basically, if you're black, you got no say in anything. we will just tell you what to do. We will enforce these things on you. And I thought slavery was over. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe, because to me it sounds slavish. You can't really come in and say human right on this where there's other rights, especially blacks in America. A lot of their rights are being violated. Nobody's saying anything about it. Sudan, there's a genocide happening, falling under deaf ears, but come up with this nonsense and then it's like, hey, yeah, the whole world is going to pieces. So that is something we got to pay attention to and watch out. Anyway,